We have a couple people. Hi, Adam, and we're going live. We should be live now. Welcome, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. We'll see if we have a couple more people pop in, but it is 10 a.m. here on the East Coast of the U.S. It is 3 p.m. I think in the UK right now, right, Martin?
That's correct.
Where you are. So thanks again for agreeing to do this. Super excited, and just based on the conversation we had in Slack, which I'm also gonna pop in here again. I think everyone else knows it, but Adam, for you, like this is our Slack link for small but growing and intimate community for everyone co-starting, and which is where Martin and I came up with this topic, and he just popped in a very interesting chart. So I want to start with that, I think, because let's start with a bang. So Martin has been YouTubing for a number of years. He's an entrepreneur. He's a software engineer, I guess, or an engineer by trade.
Yeah.
Working on his own projects. The major one called Flotelic. You should also go check that out. And YouTubing about this, right? So building in public about his journey and kind of just reporting on the things he's doing and the things he's interested in. So if I look at this chart, I have it in front of me. It looks like you started somewhere in 2016 or so. It went up quite quickly in a matter of less than a year, less than half a year, I would say, to about 330 or so followers, right? And then it kind of trickled along there for a little bit. And then this year, there is just this spike. So I think this is, again, I'm glad that you're the subject matter expert today, because that's a perfect start of the conversation. So with that, Martin, maybe you want to give us some more of your background, and then just what excites you about this topic about video content marketing, video strategy. We heard that people want to talk about the tools, everything around it, right? So take it away.
Great. Yeah. So 2016, I started watching YouTube and seeing these vloggers doing this thing, and I thought, I saw Casey Neistat for the first time, and I thought, who's this pretentious person who seems to be cutting all the cues in airplanes and air travel? And as I started watching the content, it clicked. Like, this is the replacement to TV. This is something different. It even has another dimension to it where YouTubers collaborate and you get the backstory, and it was really compelling. And 2016, I was really getting into it, sort of following YouTubers. To be honest, I felt like I was punching below my age, because it felt like a bit of for a younger audience. But I was enjoying the way to understand it and actually see what's going on. And then some way through 2016, I was feeling a bit creatively stifled with my work, and I'd always loved filmmaking. Not that I've made any films or anything, but I loved it as a kid. Got into programming and filmmaking with my friends at the same time. So having a camera, learning the techniques, all of that was something I really enjoyed. And I've just picked up the camera one day and said, let's start a vlog. I'll do 10 days worth of vlogging, just sharing kind of like, what I do, sharing my idea. Can't remember exactly what it was specifically, but just give it a go. And I committed myself to do 10 days. And then when that worked and finished the 10 days, I then did another 10, and 130 days later, I produced something every day. It was very exhausting, and it was sort of a mixture between vlogging and entrepreneurship. So while I'm not going to be skateboarding through New York, I'd like to think that there's a niche of people who like to create things and see things from a more different perspective, a creative perspective, and I wanted to share that. It also helped at the time I worked in a cemetery, which is always a good icebreaker conversation. So the backdrop was quite unique, let's say, and confusing, but it was actually a design agency which rented desks out of a converted chapel in a cemetery. So it was a good space to do the kind of walking, talking kind of style videos. So that got sort of at the initial push. I remember like having 17 subscribers, and like that was wow. And then it sort of gradually trickled up to 100 subscribers, and then there was a bit of a push that sort of took it through to the 300s. And the thing that really got that was essentially a couple of videos around technology. So I had some technical issues with a Microsoft product, and basically told that story. And because it's a product, you get the keywords in there, people discover it, and then they may follow from that content. So while those videos were getting, I don't know, something like 50,000 views or something, I could see a trickle of people who wanted to stay for the for the rest of the content. But it got harder. I didn't want to make that kind of content. And it sort of got harder to maintain that. My son was born, and I think I got a bit burnt out from the 130 videos, and then sort of trickled some other videos out, but it never really resonated. It never really took off. So it used to be I'd put some videos live and I'd lose some subscribers because maybe the content was different. And so morally, like between 2016, 17 through to the end of 2020, like I knew that I still wanted to get back to it. I wanted to produce content that was of a higher value, maybe more focused, but I never quite had that route to doing that. So it was always dribs and drabs. So I think that plateau is a sign of if you don't do anything, you don't gain anything. And that's really important in any kind of content marketing strategy. So then really, what's the magic that's happened in 2021, which has got the hockey stick style growth in terms of subscribers? I mean, we're not talking amazing numbers. What we're talking about is something that shows how it works and that it's tangible and it's real. And that brings me to the building in public journey, where the whole thing goes full circle. I wanted to produce better content. I was into listening to audiobooks, and I wanted to capture my understanding and share that knowledge through my YouTube and then potentially a blog. But I didn't really have the right disciplines, the right techniques, and all of that to continue that through. So in 2020, I decided, actually, let's not focus on YouTube and figure out how to solve that problem. And that's why I came up, that's why I discovered the note-taking method, the Zettelkasten method. And then end of 2020, I sort of pivoted a project I was working on to being a note-taking app, which sort of is the precursor to content creation in my view. Did the building in public and forced myself to launch something and documented that journey. And the thing that's actually worked is a mindset shift. I'm not just documenting my entrepreneurship journey, and I'm not teaching people about my product. They're not marketing videos for what I'm building, and it's not just the building in public. It's actually going down to the why I'm building this. I'm building it because I believe that note-taking is the precursor to improving your knowledge management, your knowledge, and actually deploying that in your life. So that if you have a need, if you want to improve something in your life and it requires you to gain a new skill, you need to learn that new skill, you need a way to take that knowledge and do something with it. So I listen to a lot of audiobooks, everything from entrepreneurship through to spirituality, through to biohacking and longevity. Really fascinating stuff, things that I want to put into my life, things that I want to share to those who are in a similar point in their journey and would find it useful. So it needs a good way of capturing that knowledge and being able to share knowledge. So that's where the note-taking comes in. And thinking of it as a goal of helping other people in their note-taking journey, it means that Flowtelic, the product I'm building, isn't the only way people can do that. They can do it by using other products. And if I'm true to my cause, I'm not here to sell my product. That's just a consequence of me solving it for myself and maybe useful to others. I need to help other people with their note-taking. Therefore, I can teach them how to use competing products and apply the techniques like the Zettelkasten technique in those competing products. What that does is it drives attention my direction that would otherwise be going to the competition or to other creators. And when you have that attention, genuinely help them, because that's, I do want to share this technique and help other people, but at the same time, just showing what it is that I'm building in the background, the building in public aspect. And it's had two things that's been a result of that. One, the number of people who subscribe has gone up because I'm hitting the keywords for those products. They're coming, viewing the content. They obviously like the content, and that trickles down into subscribers. And the second thing that's really interesting is that about 50% of those people who subscribe then drop their email in the wait list for my product, which is really, really surprising, I guess, or encouraging, because that now means that before I've officially launched, I have, as of now, over 500 people who are ready and waiting to try it out. And I mean, they can use it today. There's like an open beta. It's not really a wait list, but the point is I've got a communication channel to them directly where they've signaled that actually this product you're building, I'm interested in it, and I want to see where this goes. So
that's amazing. So you say you have 500 people on that mailing list already, right? And you just mentioned to me before the call you're scratching on very, very close to 1,000 subscribers right now. So that probably means the number is actually higher than 50%, right? Because you already had 330%.
Exactly.
That is very cool. So congrats to that. I want to dig into that in a little bit, but I want to go back to what you said about the mindset shift, right? So it sounded like a little bit you started with, the building in public. Well, first of all, you just started with, content creation because you were excited about it, right? I think that's a good start.
I did want to actually, just to throw something in there, about 10 videos in or something like that, I decided actually I wanted to build a startup through the YouTube channel, but that failed horribly, but good learning curve. So
what startup was that?
It's called Bebril, Bebril, got the .com before it. And it was a desire to help people, become the best version of themselves, connect with others. Turns out that I didn't quite know what that looked like, and it's led me on the path to be the best version of yourself. You need to open your mindset to new information, reading books, essentially, all of those things, and organizing that. So it probably led me to the note-taking in a very roundabout way. Would I go back to that idea? Possibly later, if I found that there was a compelling gap to fill. But right now, note-taking, I think it's the core of it that I'm interested in, getting people to get their core strategy, mindset in place, so that can unlock their potential for the next steps. So I'll say this: after reading books, I'm a happier person than I used to be before, and I feel more confident and all of that. So yeah, that's a little caveat there. So building a public has probably always been sort of an interesting take that I've always had. I completely derailed your question.
Yeah, that's fine. That's totally fine. So I did want to mention real quick that we're 15 minutes in now. I'm a terrible facilitator, and I should have mentioned this in the beginning, of course, but this is a bit of an open forum, what we have here usually, right? I just popped it in the chat. Martin is I put it in quotation marks usually, like the subject matter expert, right? Like, so we talked a lot about video content stuff, YouTube stuff in the cohort he was in with co-starting. But the virtual coffee meeting really is kind of an open forum, and anyone can kind of jump in with questions or with some of their anecdotes or stories or whatever is relevant. And my role is kind of just to facilitate ping pong back and forth. But if you guys are just consuming today, that's also totally fine. So if, just let me know if you want to jump in, or just jump in when you see a break. I just wanted to mention that to everyone. So again, back to build in public and the marketing aspect, right? So I think that's very powerful. And we saw a lot of this recently. Again, well, this is kind of an ever recurring story, right? Like, what's your why? And I think Ray, Martin, you and a couple of others in the community have talked about this a little bit more recently again, which is extremely powerful. And I like that you realize that for yourself to go there, which is actually not an easy thing to do, in my opinion, right? Like, really answering that question for yourself, and then combining that answer, if you come to one, with that content strategy is even harder, right? So give us a little bit of insight on how you approach that, right? So you knew that you wanted to continue with YouTube or with a video content strategy. You decided it's not just purely building, it's not purely just trying to promote the product, because either of those methods work for some people, right? There is very successful people who building in public, literally even live coding, and they have their niche, they have their users, they have their viewers. But like, how did you come up with like your why, and then how did you turn that into what is that content now that I know which way I want to shift my mindset to?
Yeah. So being a content creator, you have it can be tricky because you can start falling for the numbers. You can start falling for the views. I think even it takes a real, someone to never look at their numbers, to not have some level of desire for a positive feedback loop of likes and subscribers. And when you chase doing content for likes and subscribers, you run the risk of doing something you don't enjoy, or doing something that sort of falls out of alignment of actually what you really care about. And what's clicked into place for me this year is the thing I obsess about is I love learning. There's a word for it. It's an autodidact, someone who just loves to self-learn and self-improve in that sense. So that's me. And I recognize there's a skill gap in how I do it and all of that. So everything else falls into place from there. So I need better tooling. I need better understanding. The other aspect of my why is I generally have a desire to help other people if I give the opportunity. I actually wrote a blog post on this. I discovered recently that part of my ego wants to know that the skills that I've attained are of value to other people. Why that is, I can't really tell you, but that's a pattern I've observed. And it's why I love side projects, which technically Flowtelic is, because it helps me gain new skills, which then I can use. I love video making because I gain skills and I can use, like being here today talking about YouTubing is I'm not a professional YouTuber. It's a side thing. But it's something I really love doing and have some insight into. So then thinking about the why in that sense, the bigger why for me, when I love to help other people, I recognize that I want to obviously make the world a better place than when I came into the world. I may not be able to save the world, I may not be able to change the world, but if I can help other people go on to do that and help them unlock their potential, then I think that's a win. That's I'll be quite happy with that as a life goal, being someone who lays a brick in the foundation for someone else to build on. And that's really important. So when you combine these things together, love knowledge and want to share knowledge, which ultimately what it comes down to, everything else falls into place. So creating YouTube content is fine. I know it's a skill to keep growing at. And what is the biggest thing that makes a difference is giving as much authentic value that helps the person, rather than trying to do things because it helps you. Which is why I'm 100% comfortable helping other people win at competing products, even if it leaves money on the table for me, because I also know that if I didn't do that, I wouldn't have any money on the table anyway, because they wouldn't have found my content. They wouldn't have gone in there. So maybe you can call it a lost leader, but ultimately, if someone came to me and say, hey, I watched your video on a competing product and I'm really crushing it now and I'm really enjoying it, I'll take that as a win. That's a really good thing. And when it comes to content creation, especially video, lots of people say, like, I'm not confident on camera, or I don't know how to come across. One of the things that's always helped me is only talk about things you're confident with, or more to the point, only things that you enjoy talking about. And when you do that, sort of the pressure can come off a little bit, and you just go for what you love talking about, what you love sharing, and it gets easier the more you do it. So I won't do videos on stock trading or anything like that, because I know nothing about it. So I'd really struggle with that. But if it's something I do know and I do love, it's really easy. So this comes down to the one fundamental thing. If YouTubing isn't fun, maybe it's not right. Maybe you're forcing it, or maybe you're not doing something that's in alignment. That is different if it's purely a business and maybe you're hired to kind of produce content and it's very strict kind of content strategy. But generally, when people say, I want to do something with YouTube, the content strategy is an open wide book. And like, what do I do? How do I reach my true fans? How do I get those subscribers? And the best thing really in the early days is just do what you love, but help other people. So this is why I failed at being a vlogger, is because maybe my life just isn't as interesting. Like, that's the truth. I'm not a Mr. Beast. I don't have the gravitas that he will have in a presence, or the deep pockets that he's earned over the. But he got there through YouTubing to throw millions down in every video, right? But
he literally spends an average $1 million a video now.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So
and his main channel is not profitable. Like, he puts literally every cent from the main channel back into the main channel to grow his brand, right? It's
I mean,
insane.
If he doesn't become the biggest YouTuber, then I don't know how this world works, right? He's got to. I think he'll dethrone PewDiePie with that strategy for sure if he keeps it up.
And just to sidetrack here for a second, but I think he's actually a really interesting example. Like, you can think about his content whatever you want. Like, I'm not the main target audience, I don't think either. But I am really fascinated by his business strategy, right? And he just kind of stumbled into it and grew into it. I mean, it's huge now, right? Like, it's a big production. And again, $1 million a video. But he also has that aspect we were just talking about, right? His why, again, believe him or not, I'll leave that up to you individually, but his why is it's very similar, right? Like, he wants to make the world a better place. Like, I think he wants to open like 1,000 homeless shelters or something like that.
Yeah.
He's doing the plant 1 million trees. So he has all of these very philanthropic, very value-driven causes in the background, right? Which I think also for himself, it helps him to justify why to blow $1 million in something silly, right? Like, keep your hand on that stack of cash for however long you can and you get it, right? Like, I mean, that's his style, right? So, but again, I think if he didn't have that why, first of all, I don't think he would be able to keep doing it either. And second, his brand wouldn't be as powerful, right? That's my interpretation, at least. So if anyone has any opinion on that, that would be interesting to, talk about for a minute as well.
The way I interpret that, which, bringing that back to creators like us, it's short-term versus long-term thinking. So if you're short-term, you're scared to leave money on the table. You're scared to not ask or promote, or you're scared to drive people to your competing products by even mentioning their existence. But if you're long-term thinking, what wins is authenticity and value. And if your value is in education, then you educate, and authenticity is your brand, where people come back to you for the education. If you're an entertainer, which is what Mr. Beast is ultimately, then you entertain. But again, he wins because he's authentic. You watch him in interviews outside of his main channel, and you can tell that he is someone who's just figuring out as he goes along and happens to stumble across something that works, and hasn't really let it go to his head, if that makes sense. So it's long-term thinking. He knows that what his why will be a multi-year project. For me, my why to build, I don't have a deadline of when I need to make my product succeed or my channel succeed. All I care about is that continual growth while I've got, the time on this planet to do it, right? So
maybe we can jump into the stuff we don't see for a minute, which is most of the work, right? Which is the production, the pre-production, the post-production, hours of editing. And that, is kind of in line with the question Emmy was just asking. So we have a channel together, and it's completely different. Not sure what our why is actually yet for the channel. Maybe we should talk about that.
Yeah.
I mean, well, yeah, okay. That would go too far to get into that right now. But I know, right? So I am creating the content because it's a physical world kind of documentation kind of thing, right? So we're documenting projects we're doing in the physical world, and trying to kind of share them with the YouTube audience. And Emmy is doing the editing. So, and I know she's struggling with that it's just annoying to edit sometimes, right? Especially if you don't know the content yourself even, right? So how do you deal with that? Like, do you have similar kind of issues, or are you one of those? I think there's two types of people, right? At least two types. There's the people who do YouTube because they just really like making videos, right? They love the editing part. They love making like fancy transitions, and like they love every aspect of that. That's great. For them, maybe the other side is harder, right? Like, how do you deal with that? Do you have any tips for Emmy on that aspect?
Yeah. So I used to spend a lot more time on my editing in the early, when I was doing the vlogging side, because it'd be multi-shot. You got to chop it down. You got to take out the boring bits. You add the music, the titles, all these kind of things. And yeah, it can take hours. And when I did a video a day, I would start actually recording videos that I knew were easy to edit. I would do more one-take things. I would maybe do some time lapses at the intro and make sure that I had the right balance of things. But even then, I could have streamlined a lot more. And then you'll have some days which are really quite chaotic, where there's a lot of content, and like the edit time can go exponentially on that one, as I'm sure you're aware. Like there's an hour worth of footage from this day, all chopped up from different cameras, depending on the setup. You bring it all in, you've got to categorize it, and to do that quickly and turn it around, it's an involved process. Finding the right music is an involved process. All those kind of things. When I do edit, I like to start with the music and edit to the music. For me, when editing, music sets the tone, sets the story. Whether other people hear the same story when they hear the music, I don't know, but but what I do with the content today is I make it really minimal. The video I did today, I opened up OpenStream Broadcaster. I had to faff about with getting the right screens and that, so I could do the screen recording for the content and with my overlay of the talking head part of it. But once I recorded it, I literally dragged that file onto YouTube, and then it's a case of doing the chapter markers. That takes the time, and then I've got a bit of a process of how I do the thumbnails, which it seems to be working for me now. Then taking screenshots where you get funny facial expressions. I have a title with some stock graphic that's sort of an abstract background or something like that. So I'm a member. I pay for Envato Elements, so I've got access to music and stock photos. I think I pay $20 a month or something for that, maybe a bit less. So things like that really help, where you're not scratching for those smaller assets just to drop in. But I don't have a channel intro title. I used to, but I'm just rolling it to get the content done at the moment and focus on the content. So where does my time go in producing content? It's really about, because I'm now in education mode, it's making sure that I teach in the right way. And sometimes that can be a little harder because my videos go for over 40, 50 minutes sometimes. So the chapter markers are really critical for that, so people can jump around. But then I am going for the kind of audience who want that deep thinking, and really they want the masterclass. That's what I'm trying to give them, rather than the intro or the high level. So depending on that can require more input down at the preparation stage. So if if you're communicating a coherent kind of set of instructions, education, then you're going to put more prep in the preparation side of things. If it's a vlog style, there may be an element of kind of planning out the day or planning out the event, but most of your effort then will be in the storytelling and the back end, which is the edit, which is, yeah, that's time consuming. So does that answer the question? I can't remember what the question was now. What was my process like? Or
it wasn't even really actually a question. Just I just really resonated when you said like it's hard to make videos about things that you don't know about and that you don't love, because I sit here for hours and I'm just like, I don't want to do this. But I know like in the future we'll make videos that I do love doing, and I want to have the experience, but it's just like it's so hard to push through those things that like half-hour long videos with just 10 hours of footage that I have to comb through.
Yeah, that's you're probably in a unique position. You're taking the editor role where presumably you're not the main content creator. So you don't remember the key parts as it was recorded. You're seeing it for the first time. I've never done that role per se because I've always recorded what I've edited. So I've had a mental map of what's good, where which parts to go for. If I'm talking and I do 3 takes on something, like leave a gap and you're just looking at that audio waveform and say, right, that's the one I want. Sometimes you can signal something in the audio like clap your hands if you're about to start a new section, so you can just spot that in your edit. One of the biggest tips that I learned halfway through my journey was in Adobe Premiere, which I don't use anymore, but Q and W would do the clipping, so you can just chop up your sections and cut the end off when it kind of tails off or things like that. That I need to figure out what the equivalent in DaVinci Resolve is, which is what I use now to streamline that. But as I say, I've gone extremely the other way. I just want to get the content out and the education out and focus less on the production quality. I'd like to think I haven't completely skimped on the production quality, and it looks kind of okay, but more time and energy, I'd put more effort in, I think. I've made incremental improvements, like audio quality is a main one, and a bit of lighting. But backdrop is always a tough one, because while you can see a nice clean backdrop here, I see the opposite of that on the other side.
Yeah, so. I was just thinking about that too. Like you can kind of see it behind me. Like there's all kinds of stuff.
Yeah,
but I mean, this is different, right? So this is why I live stream, because it's a different kind of content. But also, I mean, we talked about this in the Slack channel before a ton. I really should also go into production mode with all of this content now, which we're creating on all of these events, right? And chop them up into more digestible kind of nuggets, right? Nuggets of wisdom, we called them a lot before. And I haven't even done that yet either, because of the same exact thing, right? Like that editing, that going through that, spending that time is very, very daunting. But I also know you can't, it's like everything else, right? Like you can't really outsource that. Certainly not in the beginning, right? Like not until you actually have a decent amount of money to pay someone who knows what they're doing.
Absolutely.
And I mean, I guess there's just not, you just have to push through it. And with, for Emmy's case, I hopefully what you just said will come through. I think sooner rather than later, right? With the content itself being more passionate.
The question I would ask is what's the payoff for the complexity? So if there's something you can do to not create 10 hours worth of footage, but still get the same value at the end of the day, like does your video need all the fancy transitions? Does it need all these things? Sometimes that's kind of like a personal mastery of it as an editor. As a story, maybe it's not the most important thing. It depends on the video, obviously. If you're going for something that's quite emotionally driven, then yeah, the editing is probably more important. to tell that story in a concise way. But if it's more of information delivery, then maybe it's not as valuable, and you'll still get the same response, same metrics out of it. So the question I would have is what are the things that's creating the maximum amount of complexity at the edit stage, and could you improve that backwards? For example, if you've got, I don't know if this would even work. If you've got just like talking like this, is there a way to? Probably isn't. I think I've looked at this to just get like the subtitles from it and search for the content that you want to chop out and use for something, so that you're not having to sit. The problem with audio is that you have to listen to it. You can't jump around, and you can't do like a video. You could probably have 6 at once and catch the most interesting part, right? You can't do that with audio. It's very linear. So when you're not the one who created the content, it's really hard.
I'm thinking maybe for now it could be as simple as maybe I have Sven sit down and explain it, and that's my main part of the video, and then I cut in like smaller clips of the work being done rather than having big amounts of time spent on the work being done and finding the important parts of that.
Can you give me an example of what the videos are, just so I understand?
Painting our school bus, that was a big one. So we sanded down the entire thing, then primed it, then painted it. So we basically had 3 days worth of footage from that whole thing. And then I just had a voiceover. Okay.
So if I were to think of that content strategy as in isolation, I believe, is it? Is his name Louis Fun with Louis or something? I think he's just converted his van to a Tesla battery and made it electric. So he's probably gone through a similar journey in terms of how you construct a story around a van conversion, something like that. So maybe there's an element of borrowing ideas. There's 2 ways of approaching it. One, you can do a kind of a chronological diary of how this thing went, or maybe flip it into the challenges specifically. And I think this may be more useful from a channel growth point of view, where you're actually taking down, let's say you've got the whole conversion, you break it down into the bits that you need to do, and just tell the story on each bit. Not necessarily what happens in a day, but what happens with the painting. And then if you want to bring in some storytelling, you have you lead in with the thing where it all goes wrong, where you kick over the can of paint and it's gone all in the electrics or something, like a bit of drama. Then you've got the challenge that you're overcoming as someone who's converting the van. You've got how you're resolving that. So what is the strategy? How do you learn how to do it? If someone else is watching this wanting to do a similar project, that's the mindset you need to be in. Is how do you communicate in an engaging way that they can overcome their fears, their challenges, follow your journey. You're the guide by doing as well. You're also documenting, so that's part of the entertainment part. And then concluding with what went well, what didn't go well, and what's up next, kind of thing. So I don't know if that's how your content is structured. If it's like, here's 3 days of the progress, this is where we got to. I'm not going to lie to you, it will be harder because depending on your time commitments and how far through you get, but maybe the answer is flip it on its head. It's not a release it as it's done. It's a series where you've broken it down into the 10-part challenges, where you've covered the paint, the clearing, whatever that is, all the way through to the finished product. If it is a finished thing, you can go splice in the final reveal, but you don't show it, in the earlier parts of the video. So there are different ways of thinking about how you structure that, how you tell the story. I think the most important thing is when you imagine someone watching the video, and more importantly, when you imagine someone searching YouTube or being recommended on something that your video comes up on, what is that? And it's probably them trying to figure out something about the technique you're using, rather than I want to follow the journey of someone doing a van conversion.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good point, like that very last point, right? Because first of all, I think there needs to be more pre-production, and we talked about this before, which is also hard because now you even more time, and the filming gets in the way, right? Like, so if your content creation is the filming, like if like this is specifically I'm making a video about a tool review or something like that, I think that's different. But if you're doing something, if you're building a house and you're filming the building of the house, at least that's how I feel, very much so, it gets in the way because I'm building a house, I'm not making a video. And that's a mindset shift which needs to occur first. And then you need to just accept that it'll take 10% or 20% longer because you need to set up the shots, you need to plan for the shots, which would probably also help with more pre-production, right? We don't film the entire sanding off the ceiling, but we know we need one clip in the beginning, one clip in the end, and the clip in the middle of the actual sanding, and that's that. So we have 3 minutes worth of clips rather than 3 hours.
Yeah. Do you ever just put your smartphone on a tripod for a time lapse and things like that to show the transition and the progress?
Yeah, not with the smartphone, but yeah, we do have a lot of time lapses, a lot of sped up parts in between. That's kind of overwhelmingly, I think, the style so far, right? Like there's a certain task, we get into it, we have maybe some of the setup or something which is interesting, right? And that, to your last point again, right? Like what do they actually watch? And I do the same thing, right? What am I searching for? I'm not searching for, let me see everyone's full build. I'm like, okay, I am going to paint. What paint did they use? What sprayer did they use? How much did it cost, right? That's what I want to know. So I think we need to think about that. That's our pre-production precursor, and then structure the videos around that. But
yeah,
we're getting a little bit. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, not as glamorous as the storytelling, vlogging, people coming along the journey. It's is it belt and braces, kind of just this is a technique, this is an educational thing. But what you do is you build your authenticity and your personality through that. So come for the tutorials, stay for the entertainment type of thing.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Thank you.
Awesome. So we talked a lot about us now, which I apologize. But Adam, you've been patiently listening. I wanted to throw you quickly the microphone and see if you wanted to chime in. What's your story? Why are you interested in video content marketing? Are you working on any projects or any startups? You're muted.
There we go.
There you go.
Used to can you hear me okay?
We can.
Oh, good. I actually spoke to Martin last week. We were talking about, I am working on an idea. And I spoke to Martin last week, and he kind of introduced to me the idea of YouTube as a potential avenue to get people interested in my project. The project that I've done a few things in the past, but the project that I'm working on right now is something called, it's focused on software engineers. It's called principles.dev, and it's hoping to improve software engineering for everybody, really, making it a lot better. And it's a multi-year project. It's something that's going to take a long time to really get going, and I'm happy to do that. So it is very much a kind of side project, but I was interested because I spoke to Martin last week and was like, hey Adam, I've got this, YouTube's really interesting channel. I had never really thought about it before. So that's why I'm here, really, just to hear about, I guess, more in depth about Martin's experience, because we did talk about it in brief, and just to hear what he had to say about it. So yeah, that's it.
Awesome. That sounds interesting. It does sound like a good domain from the very little I know about it right now. But to do YouTube videos, right? Especially if your why, which you already actually mentioned, I think, is to make programming easier, better, more accessible for people. I think that's very powerful, right? And certainly there's always, over the last, I don't know, however long I've been in this industry, just more and more demand. So if you can educate, which I'm guessing here is probably the angle, right, on that potential channel, that'd be very cool.
Yeah, just to put it in brief, software engineering is as Martin knows, can be an absolute nightmare. And a lot of the reason it's a nightmare is because it's such an activity that requires sharing of mental models. You know, if I build a system, a lot of the time you're working in 2D lines of text, but those 2D lines of text that you're writing, the source code, turns into big 3D objects that interact and communicate with each other. And if you can't share those mental models with other people, just everybody builds software in a completely different way, and it's really high friction activity. So it's really about making teams better on software engineering, and sharing those mental models through principles is an effective way of doing that. So yeah, like I say, it's going to be a long project, but it's something that, you know, get up and I'm like, I really want to spend time working on that. So I guess, you know, you guys can relate to that. If you can get up every day and you're like, yep, I want to spend more time on this project, then you know you've got the right thing. And for me, it's definitely the right thing.
That's interesting. So something popped in my head just now. Martin, we talked about this before very briefly. It hasn't gotten any further than that, but I was considering, so with co-starting, what we also have is these cohorts and these peer groups. And I was considering putting together a group for, you know, early-ish stage YouTubers, kind of like a mastermind-ish setup, right, for people who want to either get into or progress or have some milestone in their YouTube journey, and, you know, check in with each other on a weekly basis. Just throwing this out there for you guys to think about. If anyone is ever interested in that, you know, with the four of us kind of dabbling all a little bit in YouTube right now, usually these groups are about 4 to 6 people, which is a good setup. That could be something which might be helpful on, you know, kind of having this, but more personal in a continuous basis, right? And just kind of having this accountability check-in with each other on, it's like, so I don't know, the easiest setup is, of course, everyone who wants to put out a video weekly, right? Like, easy to hold each other accountable on that. But of course, it doesn't have to be that. Again, just throwing that out there. Awesome. Any other questions from you guys right now? I want to just open it up a little bit, like from what we discussed so far, or any specifics you are interested in. We talked a lot. We scratched on tools a little bit. Heard about DaVinci Resolve, Adobe Premiere Pro. We used both of those before, also using DaVinci Resolve. Oh, I just see Rex's spec. Sorry about that. I didn't see you in the backstage there, Rex. Anything?
Martin, you said, oh, sorry.
Sent.
Sorry about that. What's that, Rex?
Sorry, the Slack channel is not working.
It's not? All right, 1 second. Yeah, Emmy, you can ask while I figure that out.
Yeah, Martin, you mentioned really briefly earlier that you have a fast way of making thumbnails that you do now. Do you want to get into that a little bit?
Yeah, so I used to use like Adobe products, and then started switching to the more cost-effective alternatives. If they do the same thing, I love the Affinity set of products. So Affinity Designer is sort of an illustration program, but like Illustrator. The nice thing about it is I pay once and you can use it indefinitely. And so what I have is essentially a template in Affinity Designer with the text, the fonts, and then I will go into find like some kind of new colorful abstract background, bring that in, put the kind of caption that I want. What I used to do originally was like try and freeze frame something from the video, put some text over it, all of that. But I found that actually this one has a more sort of unified look for my style of content because it's more educational. I can have something that's sort of suggestive in that. So I've got a video on focus mode on the app that I've launched, and you know I can then do an illustration of someone late at night studying. So it sort of sets that kind of mood. And yeah, the tips with thumbnails is you want to use sort of like bolded fonts so that they're visible on, especially on small screens. They're sort of impactful. So maybe the font impact is probably quite useful there. high contrast, obviously, with text in the background. So don't have white text over a photo where the sun's behind it. That doesn't make any sense because you'll wash out the text. But increase the sharpness and the saturation, because then it'll, at a smaller resolution, it'll pop better and doesn't look kind of muted. It's, you know, thumbnails is one of the most important things when you look at any YouTube kind of recommendations and things like that. You need to be thinking, when you produce content, you need to be thinking, A, is it searchable? So do you have keywords that drive traffic from an audience that are already searching? So competing products is really powerful. So Rex, for your product in analytics, if you were to produce videos teaching people how to do something, solve a problem in, say, Google Analytics, chances are people will search for Google Analytics. They won't be searching for your product because they don't know about it yet, but it'll give you an opportunity for them to find your video. Then you get to introduce why you do what you do and why it's better, not in a salesy way, but in an authentic way. Be genuine. Don't, if it is genuinely better, it's better. If it's not genuinely better, don't pretend it is. People will spot that. But what that will do is it'll essentially give your video an opportunity to hit the search terms and the recommendation list. If you don't do that, you will probably never get the algorithm picking up your content because it doesn't know what it is. It doesn't know where to place it. It's not like Twitter, for example, where you just throw things and it's the stream of content and 20 minutes later it's gone. YouTube can last, like those videos can drive traffic for months, even years. So I put a video live on a secondary channel called Autodidact. One video just kind of explaining what I want the channel to be. I never did anything with it. And then during the pandemic, I forgot about the video. During the pandemic, it started getting views and got over 2,000 views, despite the fact there was that time gap between when it was produced and when it went live, because it had a keyword of Autodidact, which that one probably did better in the recommendation list because it's a quite unique word that is easy to tie that relevancy to. So think about keywords. Once people see your video, then the thumbnail comes in. That's the first thing that people will see when they look at that entry. Then they may read the title, which gets cut off half the time anyway.
I'm sorry, is it in the title or the description?
In the title.
The keyword.
Yeah, don't overload. Like, don't keyword stuff your title. But for me, what are some of my most popular videos? I teach the Zettelkasten method using Obsidian. So the title would be something like how to use Obsidian or how to do Zettelkasten in Obsidian. 2 keywords. People search for Obsidian, they might find my video. Search for Zettelkasten, they might find. And someone who's searching for Zettelkasten but also has looked at videos with Obsidian, the algorithm say, aha, here we go. Right, I've got just the video for you. So it's that. So you don't want to overload it. Obviously, adding keywords and the tags as well. I'm not sure how well the tags have an impact in the algorithm nowadays, partly because it's easily abused. So
yeah, I did just watch something. I don't remember from whom. One of the fairly successful ones. I think the guy with the squirrel obstacle course, whatever his name is. If you haven't seen that, definitely search for
Mark Roper, is it?
Yes.
I spent a lot of time on YouTube. This is good trivia.
His content, I mean, that shit's polished. Wow.
Oh yeah.
It's
well,
crazy.
He went to NASA, didn't he? He knows his stuff. So
right.
That's an example of an expert and a communicator coming together. Like that's gold mine. You know, when you know your stuff and you're a great communicator.
Yeah, but it might have been him, it might have not been, but someone just did an analysis of what they think. Of course, no one really knows the algorithm, but thumbnail, title are the most important. Description a little bit. He didn't think the tags were too much anymore.
Yeah.
But does any one of you know if the titles, like, does it matter if you update them? Because you can't update them, right? Like, so let's say you just started, having van conversion 1, van conversion 2, van conversion 3. Of course, no one is ever going to find that, right? And then, once you're once you get serious about your content strategy and you actually look back and you're like, okay, and now I start to understand how YouTube works, how they want to see my stuff. Maybe I can help this along a little bit. Do we think it makes sense to update those retrospectively, or maybe not?
My view is it should help. I don't have any proof or evidence to suggest. And I did actually try it on one of my videos, but I forgot which one now, so I can't go back and look at it. So it's one of those things. As you start getting more data, some videos will do better, some may not. Then it's a good time to experiment. I think even YouTube may have been trialing something where you can A/B test your thumbnails or something like that. It was a while ago now when I heard it. So certainly updating. I don't see why it wouldn't, because it would make sense that if a keyword was in a video that was getting recommended but wasn't performing well, if you remove that keyword, it shouldn't put it in there, right? So if it was a mistake, you put it in there, or you tried keyword stuffing, if you took it out, it shouldn't still surface where it shouldn't have been before. So the inverse you would think might be true, that if you went back and updated it, then it can help things. I think part of the professional YouTubers do spend a lot of time figuring out their formula. So what their content and how that performs in the algorithm. So titles, thumbnails, descriptions, potentially. I wouldn't be surprised if the auto subtitling also was keyword mined. So to make sure that you actually talk about the thing that the title says. So yeah, don't put something in the title that isn't mentioned in the video. And then the biggest thing that will impact any performance, all that does in some way is get your initial a video that's never been seen before, get people finding it. The thing that keeps it there is your watch time and your like to dislike ratio. So if it's something that people keep disliking, you will always get dislikes, no matter how good your video is. There'll always be that portion of the population who seem to hit that dislike button for reasons that someone will figure out one day.
Or not.
But it's the ratio. I get videos that have maybe 100 to 200 likes and maybe 16, 20 dislikes, something like that. It's a good ratio. If it was 50-50, I probably wouldn't be ranking very well in YouTube, because it's quite a dividing piece of content. But watch time is really important. And what I've observed is, well, there's a few other things that play into it. Firstly, what YouTube really cares about is how much time someone spends on YouTube, because that is their opportunity to make money through ads. They used to be that if videos over 10 minutes were going to perform better because there's more surface area for ads. I think that's not as relevant now. And weirdly, I get a lot of recommendations in my list of 30-second videos. So it's obviously if users engage, that will win. If people watch it and click off or go back to their search, that's a big negative. So if someone's trying to get an answer to something, they watch a video and say, no, this isn't what I was looking for. They go back to their search and they go to the next one, that video will get a down ranking. That's the same with Google search for websites as well. If someone goes back to Google, it means that website did not fulfill the requirements of that search. Therefore, it shouldn't be there, is the sort of signal. Obviously, it takes a number of people to down rank something. And then it's whether people stay on YouTube. So if you drive people to click a link and then leave YouTube, that's not in YouTube's favor. Don't expect that to perform really well. So be careful how many times you get someone to jump out of YouTube in your video. Like, hey, go watch my TikTok here, or go watch my Instagram here. Like, that's probably not going to help you, because it's not in YouTube's interest. If people watch that video and then watch other videos on your channel, so you've got the recommendations, that's a really good signal that you're a YouTuber who is engaging. And the bit that's really thrown me a little bit, because like watch time is really hard, especially when you produce videos that are educational, quite deep thinking, and are an hour long. You'd think that 5 minutes in, like average watch time could be 5 to 10 minutes, maybe even less for an hour long. You think that's pretty poor. there's no expectation that someone will watch the entire video. And if you put the chapter markers in, as long as people go through your video and find the content that's worth something to them, if they give it a like and if they subscribe, these are really good signals. You don't get the like and you don't get to subscribe by playing an algorithm game. And that's probably the most important thing. So first one is titles just gets you in the right room for the people that you're trying to target. Thumbnails gets them to look at your video rather than the other videos. That's the only thing it is, a funnel. Once they're on your video, your job is to deliver on that value in the best way possible, that they like it and want to subscribe. And if you win that, I think that's where you can succeed. So my channel has obviously hit some of those metrics, some of those markers, but it's in a very niche space of note taking and particularly around some of the competing products. So I'm in my own little niche. If my videos appear to other people, yeah, they wouldn't perform well at all. But thankfully they don't, so they can't downrank me. So yeah, that's my understanding of how the flow of things goes.
Yeah, I think that was a really good summary here to the end of the meeting. How do you get them there, right? And then how do you keep them there? My favorite quote for today, I like to pick Martin quotes and turn them into little, what do you call them, memes, I guess, or something. I think is that the likes and the subs come from the quality of the content, right? And not by playing the algorithm game. Slightly paraphrased here.
Yeah.
But I think that's true, right? Like, of course, we need to play the algorithm game to surface, but just like with everything else, I'm a firm believer in that for product, for startups, for anything you're working on. Just make something awesome, right? Just make something really great or as good as you can. And eventually, if you play the long game, it'll pay off.
Yeah. And I'd like to end with, don't enter YouTube to get subscribers or get likes or have a big channel or monetize. Think of it as an opportunity to gain skills and have a way to do that. So every video that you put out, you want to assess it. Did I use the skills I have, or are there skills I can gain? And just iterate on that. And then, you know, the followers, and if you do the right thing in terms of authentic and engaging and all of that, because those are skills. That's not luck. That is skills. To create a video that is engaging is a learned skill. Then that should drive the subs and all of that, and then you grow as you go. So think of it as not how do I be the best YouTuber. A lot of people I speak to just want to put the perfect video out. And that is the worst thing you can do. In anything, it's the worst thing you can do. There is no such thing as perfect. And all there is progression. So put something out. If it really sticks out when you find perfection, take it off. You know, hide it. That's fine. But just make sure that you don't bite off more than you can chew. Do one thing at a time. Every video, if it's not where you want, just change one thing every video. And refine your skill. Get the skill. Don't, like, if lighting is something you want to improve on, just do that over and over until you get it down and it's consistent, that you don't think about it, that you don't make the mistake. Yeah, and enjoy it.
Do you have a script before you start recording the video? Do you have a script?
I tried that once. I had a little teleprompter. You put it over your camera, and it has a mirror, and you put your phone. I cannot do that for the life of me, which means I refine my skill at talking ad lib. I just go for it. It makes for longer, more rambly videos. I totally respect that. But the most important thing is talk from the heart, talk from something that you are passionate about. If there is, what I will do, and I actually have some things, I do bullet point lists if I have a talking point to get through. But the more you do it, the easier it gets, the more confident you get. I noticed when I stopped doing YouTube for a bit, I got less confident on camera, less confident even just talking to other people, right? So the more you do it, the easier it gets. the more you can string sentences together without the ums and ahs. It's a groove that you get into that takes a few weeks to settle into, and consistency keeps you there. And if you stop it, then you sort of regress, unfortunately, at least in my experience. So just do it and let nature figure it out. Let the brain figure out how to make it more efficient and easier for you.
Fantastic. All right, so we're over an hour already. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. Thank you so much, Martin, for all your wisdom.
You're welcome.
I hope, go check. Maybe you hit the 1,000 subs already because of all of this promotion we were doing here.
Oh, I've lost those subs. What have you done, Sven?
If you did, I'm sorry. No, but yeah, again, right? So hopefully, Rex, I put the link again in Slack. If it doesn't work, go to costarting.org, reach out to me. If you want to join the Slack, we'll find a way to get you there. Adam, same thing. If you want to stick around, that'd be great. If not, I'm super happy that you could join us today. We are doing these calls, these events monthly now, and I'm always looking for new speakers, new subjects, new topics you are interested in, because again, we're doing this in an educational manner, right? Like hopefully to help other entrepreneurs, other aspiring, starters, whatever the project may be you're working on, to progress in their journey. This is why we're doing this. So anything you need help with, let me know and we'll put it together.
Yeah. So I'll just throw this out. So Rex, you're building a product around analytics. So an opportunity for content creation for you is teaching entrepreneurs what analytics they need to track. What should they be tracking? How they make decisions from it. Forget the tooling, because I know it's always tempting to sell your own product. But at the high level, seed the ideas. And Adam, I'm sure we spoke about this previously. Introducing software best practices, especially those who are probably, in your case, maybe those who are building teams and hiring. Like, how do you hire the right talent for your startup so that you get something that's maintainable and robust, and no infighting over whether you put semicolons or is it tabs and spaces? I know that's a trivial one. I love Silicon Valley, the TV show. That's my all-time favorite meme of the industry.
I agree. Awesome. Well, again, thank you, everyone. And hopefully I'll see you next month.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sven.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, Martin.
Thank you very much.
Bye.